Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. I wasn't snooping. I powered up an old phone, trying to figure out whose it was, and when I opened Messenger, I saw the messages, flirtatious texts, and plans to meet. I travel for work a few days each month, and it seems they used that time while I was in Europe. There are no-fault divorce laws where I live, but I still want to understand everything. Someone on another forum suggested a method for the confrontation, one that might give me all the details, but I'm concerned about what I might be risking legally if I surveil her beforehand. After 20 years of marriage, this has shattered me. We don't have kids, thankfully, but I'm gutted. Divorce is complicated here. It used to take 5 years, but I checked, and the rules changed in 2019. You need 2 years of separation before you can apply, and the process can still take a while. This week has been overwhelming. I've ordered a voice-activated recorder to place in her car, and I'm trying to access her current phone to see more messages and maybe find a phone number. She has an appointment on Friday that I want to follow up on. I've since discovered more. In her WhatsApp messages, I found his real name and number. Turns out, it's a former colleague of mine, someone I haven't seen or spoken to in over 5 years, and barely knew even back then. He lives nearby. I don't even know how she knows him. Maybe they crossed paths at a Christmas party, but she rarely came to those. Reading through the messages more closely has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. She seems like a completely different person with him. With me, she expects romance and emotional intimacy, never crude talk. But with him, the language is graphic, degrading, and she's completely into it. It's like she has another side I never knew existed. Yesterday, I saw a live WhatsApp conversation between them during work hours. He kept trying to initiate a video call, but I blocked each attempt. The earliest messages I can see are from 3 years ago, but they don't include any introductions, so it probably started earlier. I've spoken to a solicitor who's begun preparing a separation agreement. He advised me not to move money around or leave the home just yet. He also cautioned that there are major legal gray areas around hidden recording devices. That advice doesn't change my plan much. I'll just be careful not to reveal how I got the information. I think I can still confront her effectively without exposing the sources. I'm compiling a journal of facts to bring with me when the time comes. I'm still waiting for the recorder to arrive and also ordered a hidden camera disguised as a Bluetooth speaker. One more detail I forgot to mention. When I knew the affair partner, he was married. I don't know if he still is, but I'm seriously considering hiring a private investigator for legally admissible surveillance that I can also share with his wife. I spoke with a private investigator earlier this week. The cost isn't outrageous, and it might be well worth it for my upcoming work trip, which is in less than 2 weeks. In Ireland, you don't need to prove fault to get a divorce. So going to these lengths is more about regaining control or finding closure than anything else. Things have been moving quickly. I've now hired a private investigator who has already confirmed that the affair partner is still married to the same woman. They also found out where he lives, although I haven't asked for the exact address, because I don't want to be tempted to do something I'll regret. The PI will pass along the evidence they gather directly to his wife on my behalf, so I don't need to get personally involved. I'm flying out Monday morning and returning Wednesday. During that time, the affair partner is planning a few brief visits to my house, ones that won't raise suspicion with his wife. He'll pretend to go for a run or make other excuses to get away for an hour or so. But he's also planning to stay overnight on Tuesday. I'm not sure what excuse he's using for that, maybe a fake business trip or someone covering for him. The important thing is that the PI should be able to document him coming and going after telling his wife he'd be somewhere else. I've set up a voice-activated recorder in our fireplace. We don't use it, and she'll never look there. It picks up everything said in the living room clearly, including any conversations I might have with her in that space. Originally, I was going to place it in the car, but this spot works better. I also have a hidden camera that looks like a Bluetooth speaker, which I'll place strategically in the bedroom. Not everything has gone according to plan since my last update. I've been keeping my distance from her by working constantly, but that only works for so long. We've always had a fairly active sex life, about 3 times a week, and I can only use work and stress as an excuse for so long. She started climbing into bed with me in the middle of the night while I've been sleeping in the spare room and initiating intimacy. I felt guilty about going along with it, knowing the mixed signals I was sending, but then I reminded myself of what she's doing behind my back. It will probably happen again before I leave for my trip. Next week, I've decided I'm not moving out. I don't have any family in Ireland, and there's no one I can reasonably stay with. I simply have no place to go. So, she'll have to be the one to leave. I spoke to my solicitor again today, and I now have a draft separation agreement. It outlines how we'll handle the split finances, the house, and so on. It's a voluntary contract, not legally required for divorce, but it helps manage the process. It includes a clause that she must move out within 14 days. I would have preferred it to be sooner, but my solicitor recommended staying reasonable to ensure she'll sign it. I'll remain in the home, continue covering the mortgage, and be compensated for additional contributions when the house is eventually sold. As I've mentioned before, in Ireland, I can't file for divorce until we've been separated for at least 2 of the last 3 years. So there won't be any dramatic moment of being served papers, just the option to file or send documents by registered post after 2 years. I mistakenly referred to this period as a legal separation in earlier comments, but that's actually a different legal status in Ireland, typically pursued for religious reasons, and it doesn't lead to divorce. Some people asked whether I could file elsewhere like in Australia. I had assumed I was limited to filing in Ireland, but I've since learned that's not the case. If it comes to it, I could relocate and file in Australia, though I'd prefer to stay in Ireland where I've built my life and career. If she refuses to sign or move out, I'll book a last-minute flight to Australia, stay with family, and file for divorce there. Yes, that kind of short-notice travel will be expensive, but I'd be justified in using joint funds, especially if she leaves me without a place to live. I might even fly business class. Bottom line, she signs and moves out, or I move across the world and secure a faster divorce. If she wants to stall, that's her choice, but the path forward is clear. As for confrontation strategy, some of you have suggested the no-contact approach, basically ghosting her. I think it's effective in the right situation. It makes the cheating spouse spiral, wondering what you know or what your next move is. It's its own form of psychological punishment. But that only works if you can walk away completely. I need her to move out, so there must be a confrontation. No contact is too blunt an instrument for my current situation. That said, I don't need to reveal my thoughts or feelings during the confrontation. I just need to stay focused on the outcome, getting her to leave. I plan to be a stone wall during the confrontation, demanding answers from her without offering any information in return. The infidelity baseball approach doesn't quite apply in my case, as much of the evidence I've gathered isn't legally admissible, so I can't and won't share it with her. That said, I'll still call her out when I know she's lying. I just won't explain how I know. I think that approach will still be effective. I also won't be showing her the evidence I've gathered legally. Instead, that's going directly to the affair partner's wife. The PI will continue monitoring the house while I'm away. I know the affair partner is staying over Tuesday night, but I also want documentation of him coming and going at other times, so I can give his wife multiple examples of his presence at my home contrary to whatever excuses he's given her. Wednesday, I've got the day off. My wife will be at work, giving me time to review the PI's files, go through the audio, and pack a suitcase. Unless something major goes wrong before then, my next update will be a live post from my hotel room in England on Tuesday night while things unfold in the marital bedroom. The confrontation will take place Wednesday evening. It's D-Day. The affair partner is staying over tonight. I've set up a bedroom camera, a voice-activated recorder in the sitting room, and the PI is keeping an eye on the house. I'm in a hotel in the UK on my first work trip since discovering the affair, and this is my wife's first chance to see him since then. Yesterday, the recorder picked up the doorbell at 6:30 p.m., followed by my wife and a male voice. I couldn't make out much over the TV, and they didn't enter the rooms with surveillance, so I suspect they were in the kitchen. He left after about 30 minutes. My wife then spent the rest of the evening watching TV alone and went to bed around 11 o'clock. This morning, she acted completely normal before heading to work. Now I wait. As tempting as it is, I'm not drinking. I need to keep my head clear. This isn't going to be easy, but I'm ready. I've had plenty of time to think, though the lack of sleep isn't helping. Do I really want to see what's about to unfold? Many say no, but I believe that facing the full reality of the betrayal will help me gain closure and prevent years of second-guessing and obsession. I think people sometimes take cheaters back because they never fully grasp the depth of the betrayal. I intend to make sure that's not me. It's easier to forgive the abstract idea of infidelity than a series of concrete, repeated acts of betrayal. If my wife ever asks for forgiveness, I'll have a vivid, detailed image in my mind of exactly what she's asking me to overlook. I'll also gain insight into the nature of their dynamic, seeing firsthand how they interact. It won't be easy, but I believe it's necessary. Tomorrow's confrontation will combine ghosting with an infidelity baseball strategy. I can't disappear entirely, since I need her to be the one who leaves, but I'll remain emotionally detached and refuse to share my thoughts or feelings. I'm hoping that will have the same effect. I'll question her using a mix of information I already know and things I haven't confirmed. Every confirmed lie will be a strike. 3 strikes, and I'm done permanently. Tonight is partly about gathering more detail, more answers I can use to catch her in lies. If she refuses to leave or sign the separation agreement, I'm prepared to leave the country entirely and make this permanent, but she doesn't know that yet. Tonight, I expect to learn whether they're using protection, whether she's doing things with him she's always denied me, and much more I can't even predict. Live updates. 6:05 p.m., she's home. The voice-activated recorder picked up the front door closing. 6:30 p.m., nothing notable since she arrived. It's not unusual for her to avoid the sitting room or bedroom around this time, likely in the kitchen. I have her old phone with me and just connected it to the hotel Wi-Fi to check for new messages since Sunday. 6:45 p.m., there are new messages, though they're patchy. I don't have access to standard text, just messaging apps like WhatsApp or Messenger. She's cooking lasagna for him, so she's definitely in the kitchen. He's running late and said he'd be there around 7:30. 7:22 p.m., he's arrived. Hopefully, he smiled for the camera. The PI should be nearby with a good view of the house. I'm looking forward to seeing the footage. 7:32 p.m., they're in the sitting room now, eating. I can hear the occasional clink of dishes. The TV is off, so their conversation is coming through clearly. So far, it's mundane, just talk about their workdays and colleagues. It's strange, it sounds like a typical married couple chatting over dinner. They haven't seen each other in a month, but it feels so routine, like they do this every night. 7:41 p.m., I just felt the first wave of nausea. She asked him about his child, something about a school issue. The kid's in second class, which here in Ireland means he's about 7 or 8. Why is she so involved? Why is she helping destroy this child's family without a second thought? There's no hint of guilt, no self-awareness. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that child and whether I should stay out of it. Some would say it's not my place. But to me, what happens to that family is his wife's concern. And she deserves the chance to make decisions based on the truth. It's not my place to withhold the information she needs to make an informed decision. 7:54 p.m. I just heard the curtains being drawn. They make a distinct sound on the metal rail. I wonder if keeping them open helped the PI or if privacy laws would prevent them from capturing images through a window. We never discussed whether window surveillance was fair game, but I suspect the PI is limited to filming in public settings where there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. 7:58 p.m. The TV just came on in the sitting room, but then a door opened and closed. 8 p.m. I assumed there was bedroom activity, but it's just her. Looks like he stayed downstairs watching TV. She's carrying a towel heading to the en-suite for a shower. False alarm. I must have missed the "I'm going for a shower" conversation. She must have said it quietly. 8:24 p.m. She's upstairs drying, straightening, and brushing her hair. I replayed the audio. TV went off at 8:14. He was on the phone with his wife while mine was upstairs preparing for him. I listened to him tell her how much he loved her, how he missed her, and how he hated having to travel. He ended the call saying he was stepping out for dinner and would call her tomorrow. 8:35 p.m. She's back wearing sexy lingerie, stockings, lacy underwear, and a little black dress I've never seen before. Must be new. If I know my wife, she'll insist he showers too. 8:44 p.m. She left the bedroom after spending 45 minutes getting ready while he sat downstairs lying to his wife and watching my television. 8:49 p.m. He's in the shower now. 8:55 p.m. She just pulled out the bottom drawer of the chest of drawers, literally removed it completely. From under it, she took out a box that had been hidden beneath. It's now on the bed. I can clearly see what's inside. Yes, you guessed it, a collection of sex toys. She had them hidden in the house for him. We've never used toys. She always claimed she wasn't into that. I decided to call her. I needed to hear the lies she'd come up with talking to her husband while sitting next to a box of sex toys with her affair partner in the shower. 9:02 p.m. Just got off the phone with her. Every word was a lie. She told me she was going to bed early because she hadn't slept well the night before, said she missed me and couldn't sleep without me. Classic deflection, trying to make me feel bad for being away. Of everything I've witnessed tonight, that hit the hardest. There's no trace of guilt or remorse from either of them. They're practiced, polished liars. 9:04 to 9:21 p.m., they didn't waste time. It started with kissing by the bed, then they got under the covers. She paused briefly to ask for help with a drawer, then laid out towels presumably for cleanup. Things escalated fast, with him becoming more physically aggressive. She made a very explicit request that was difficult to hear, but incredibly revealing. 9:27 to 9:28 p.m. She told him it was his turn, took off her dress, and grabbed something from the box looked like lube. That's when I realized the toys weren't for her. What happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. Right now, I'm feeling a mix of disgust, anger, and betrayal. She's willing to go to such extremes with him, and all I can focus on is the practical side. Will she even clean that properly? Have I unknowingly slept in the aftermath of this? 9:35 p.m. Things escalated fast. She asked him to be rougher, and there was no indication that they used protection. That realization hit me like a punch. They changed positions, and let's just say he didn't hold back. When it was over, she brushed it off like it was no big deal. He promised to make it up to her later. I had to walk away for a moment just to absorb what I'd seen. A few major questions were answered. They're putting my health at risk by not using protection. They're risking pregnancy, she's on the pill, but that's not foolproof. They're not even being discreet, leaving a box of sex toys out in the open. I'll see tomorrow if she actually bothers to clean up after herself. What really caught me off guard was how routine it all was. I expected more of that infatuated, can't keep their hands off each other behavior, something that screamed affair energy. In a weird way, that might have made this easier to rationalize, chalk it up to lust, forbidden thrills, the high of doing something risky. But no, what I saw was ordinary, mundane, like they were just a married couple going through the motions. It felt like she's living a second life, like she has a part-time husband on the side. And who's to say she's his only affair? The whole thing is so incredibly selfish, so disrespectful. I could be exposed to STDs. I could have been sharing a bed with traces of their encounters. The layers of betrayal keep piling up. I'm heartbroken by what I saw, but at the same time, I'm grateful for the clarity. I'm going to take all this pain and anger and use it to build the emotional wall I'll need for tomorrow's confrontation. Now I get to shape the story. I get to decide what happens next. That's it for tonight. I have a long day ahead. Now I'm just waiting, anxious to read the explicit conversation I found on her phone. I was physically sick to my stomach while watching, but part of me kept thinking, I want her and him to see this one day. I want them to understand what I saw and not just hear about it in vague terms. So much gets lost in abstraction. No, I saw you and I know the exact details of what you did. I may have stopped typing, but I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in disbelief, watching the two of them lying next to each other in bed. They went at it again in the early morning hours, no toys this time. I've been grieving someone who's essentially gone. The person I thought I married, the version of her I believed in she might have never existed. That's how it feels. She's gone, and now I have to put that grief aside to handle the fallout. What did I learn last night? I learned, from a call with the affair partner, that he's not in an open marriage and they don't use protection. I learned that they behave like a married couple together. This isn't a fling. It's routine. I learned that my wife keeps a box of sex toys in our house. I now know exactly where she keeps them and what they're used for. And through all the recordings, not once was my name mentioned. It made me wonder if they had an agreement to never talk about their spouses around each other, like I didn't even exist. I maybe caught an hour of sleep on the flight home. First thing I did was go straight to the private investigator's office. They had video and photos. Him arriving Monday night, again Tuesday night, and leaving Wednesday morning. They gave me a detailed spreadsheet logging everything they observed. Through the window when the curtains were open, they saw them kissing on the couch after dinner. That fits, since things got quiet on the audio around that time. I didn't hear her say she was going to shower, probably because she was sitting close to him and speaking softly, so the voice recorder didn't pick it up. I got home around midday to an empty house. 7 towels were in the laundry basket. She didn't even bother to hide them. The bed sheets were untouched. Still on the bed. Disgusting. First thing I did was grab our suitcases from the shed. I packed one for me and one for her and placed them in the living room. I took the box of sex toys and moved it into a nearby room. Then I spent the rest of the day preparing, writing out my questions, rehearsing my breathing, anything to help me stay calm but firm. I charged both the voice-activated recorder and the camera. I put the recorder back in the fireplace and set the camera up in a discreet corner of the room. She came home a little after 6:30 p.m. and immediately noticed the suitcases. She asked if I was going somewhere. I said, "That depends on you. Sit down, we need to talk." I told her I knew about the affair. She tried to deny it. I told her to cut the crap, that I knew a lot more than she realized. A lot more. She tried to gaslight me, claiming I was paranoid and had trust issues. I left the room, came back with the box, and threw it to the floor. Sex toys spilled everywhere. She claimed they were hers, and that she'd been too embarrassed to tell me she needed them. I told her she'd better come up with a new tactic, because the lies weren't going to get her anywhere. And her gaslighting? It wasn't going to work this time. She started to cry, and that's when I realized I felt absolutely nothing. The way I saw her in that moment was how I'd feel about a sci-fi character who's been taken over by an alien parasite. It looked like her, sounded like her, but it wasn't the same person. 3 weeks ago, her tears would have devastated me. I would have done anything to comfort her, to make her feel better. But now, nothing. I asked if she wanted a divorce. She insisted she didn't. She said the affair partner was just a side project, that she wanted to be with me, that she loved me. She asked what she could do to fix things. That's when I brought out what I called, at least in my head, my infidelity baseball. I didn't actually use that term with her. It sounds a bit cringe, and I wasn't sure how she'd take it. Instead, I told her the lies had to stop, and that I was going to ask a series of questions. I already knew the answers to many of them. Some I didn't. But here was the rule. If she lied 3 times, I'd grab my suitcase, walk out the door, and she'd never see me again. I told her that the only way I'd even consider staying was with full, honest disclosure. That was the only path forward if there was any hope of rebuilding trust. She nodded, still crying, and agreed. I asked if it was a sexual affair or just emotional. She admitted they'd had sex. I asked if it happened in our home, in our bed. She tried to say no, that they only used a hotel. I said, "That's your first lie. I know he came here. I know you slept with him in our bed." 2 more lies, and this conversation is over. Then I asked when the last time was. She admitted it had been that morning. I asked if they'd also had sex the night before. She said yes. I asked how often they met. She claimed it was just when I was away, maybe once a month, unless she was on her period. I asked if she ever saw him casually under other circumstances, like lunch during work. She said no. Then I asked when the affair started. She said she knew him from before we met. He'd been a college crush, though nothing ever happened. She said they reconnected at one of my work Christmas parties. She admitted they flirted, that it felt inappropriate, which was why she never told me she'd known him. After that, he found her on LinkedIn and started messaging her. That was 7 years ago. Then I asked why she was hiding the sex toys. She said she used them when I was away and was too embarrassed to tell me. I told her, "That's your second lie." I made it clear one more, and I wouldn't say another word. I'd just leave and be on the next flight out. At that point, I knew I had to give her something that would show just how much I already knew. So, I told her that her affair partner liked to do with sex toys, and that I knew she did that to him. She asked how I could possibly know that. It was my turn to lie. I said I had been talking to his wife. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. She looked like a stunned mullet as she absorbed the weight of what I was saying. His wife knows about the affair too. Little did she know, it was around the same time the PI had gone to the affair partner's door to give his wife the evidence. So, either she already knows or she will soon. At that point, she turned pale, and being Irish, that's saying something because she usually starts at a pretty low base. I just knew her stomach dropped. I told her I meant it. I would be on the next one-way flight to Australia, no matter what, if she lied one more time. She started crying again, begging me to stop. She said she'd do anything to fix this and asked what she needed to do. I told her she had to tell me everything and answer all my questions. I asked if she had performed BJ on him. She admitted she had. I asked if they used protection for everything. She said no. I asked if she loved him. She said she felt something but wouldn't call it love. I asked if she would end the affair. She said she would. I asked if she enjoyed sex more with him than with me. She said it was different, but not more enjoyable. I asked again about protection during sex. She hesitated forever. I kept asking, saying if she didn't answer, I was walking out forever. Finally, she admitted she didn't use protection. There were 2 more questions I asked at this point, which I initially left out by mistake. I asked if she let him finish inside her. She admitted she did. I asked if she'd ever had an abortion. She was horrified but answered no. I handed her the separation agreement and told her if she didn't sign, I'd file in Australia. I told her that if she did sign, she had 14 days to move out, and one way or another, I wasn't spending those days under the same roof with her. If she couldn't stay somewhere else, I would stay in a hotel on joint funds. She refused to sign and begged me to stay. Then her phone rang. It was the affair partner's wife. She'd just thrown him out. He was yelling into the phone, and she was saying she didn't know anything. I just left them to it and walked out. That was Wednesday evening, the last time I saw her. I've blocked her everywhere. My employers will let me work from Australia for a while, and then I'll look into transferring or finding another job. Honestly, I'm kind of excited about starting fresh there and being closer to family. I was in my early 20s when I left. I've spent half my life in Ireland. I glossed over the phone call she got at the end, and it's giving people the wrong impression about what happened. I saw her phone buzzing and asked if it was him. She said yes. I told her to answer. I wanted to hear what he had to say, to hear the consequences of their actions were causing him pain. It was a heated conversation, and while I had her attention, I decided it was the perfect moment to start the next phase of my plan, ghosting her. I hadn't gone far down the street when she tried calling me. That's when I blocked her number. Yes, she's been trying to get through by using other numbers, but I'm not answering any of her calls. I do have to pick up unknown callers since it could be the affair partner's wife, but as soon as I realize who it is, I hang up. The voice-activated recorder is still on and recording, though I haven't checked it yet. I'll update once I'm ready to review it. Between Wednesday evening and Saturday, I focused on ghosting my soon-to-be ex-wife, ignoring all attempts she made to contact me. I'm giving this account in the order the events happened, not the order I found out about them. On Sunday morning, March 9th, 2025, I finally checked the voice-activated recorder and voicemail. Until then, I had no idea what was going on at home or what she was doing. Starting from when I drove away, I knew she realized I was gone because I heard her call out my name and open the front door. I know she tried to call me around that time, so she must have hung up on the affair partner abruptly. Then she called someone else, judging by the tone. It was probably her mother or brother. I don't know for sure. She told them I'd left her. Whoever it was asked why, and she said she didn't want to get into it since it was private, but she was worried I wouldn't come back and didn't know where I was. I didn't hear any lies, but I also didn't hear a truthful account of what really happened. About half an hour later, after I'd left, and while this phone call was still happening, the affair partner showed up at her door. She ended the call. He said something I couldn't quite hear. I don't think she opened the door. He must have been shouting through the triple glazed glass. She told him he couldn't be there, that he'd done enough damage and had to leave immediately. She threatened to call the guards, the Irish police, known as Garda Síochána, but people just call them the guards if he didn't leave. I didn't hear from her through the recorder again that night, which probably means she didn't stay in the sitting room. She might have left the house to visit a friend, because later that night I got a call from her using a number I didn't recognize. I hung up as soon as I realized it was her. She left me a voicemail apologizing, saying she was sorry and that she loved me. She said she never wanted to see another partner again and that it was all over. She claimed the affair was just physical and didn't mean anything. Mostly, she begged me to call her back or come home. Most of her voicemails were like that, or pleas for me to let her know I was okay and not dead. In one message, she was angry, calling me a coward for running away, but then she left another message apologizing and saying she didn't mean it. One thing I found strange was that none of her family had tried to contact me. The voice-activated recorder cleared that up. She was telling them not to reach out and to just let her know if I contacted them. You know what? If I didn't have that voice-activated recorder, I would have been left to assume she was spreading all kinds of venomous lies about me to both her family and mine. Knowing she didn't actually do that brought me some small relief. Once trust is broken, those kinds of actions like recording or spying become the only way to know if someone's telling the truth. I'm not saying it redeems her, but it does help ease my guilt for all the snooping. Still, it sometimes feels dirty. Then on Sunday morning at 9 a.m., the call I'd been waiting for finally came through. It was the affair partner's wife. She thanked me for sending her the PI's evidence and for making her aware of the affair. I asked what she knew, keeping in mind that the only proof from the PI showed was that he wasn't where he was supposed to be and that he was with my wife. She repeated a bunch of the lies that Fair Bart had told her, that they'd only met recently, that it was a one-time thing, that it didn't mean anything, and that he wouldn't see my wife again. He must have said all that just minutes before showing up at our house. I told her there was a lot more she didn't know, things I wasn't comfortable discussing over the phone, and asked if she'd like to meet. She was at her parents' house with her son, her husband out of the country. Since it was in Wicklow, a beautiful, green, forested part of the country about 90 minutes from the city, I thought it'd be good to get some fresh air. Plus, with her parents there to help watch her son, we'd have some privacy without being alone in the house. When I met them, I felt a wave of guilt meeting her son, and her parents welcomed me kindly, but we quickly got down to business. I told her every word her husband had told her was a lie, but I didn't expect her to take my word for it. So, I showed her my wife's old phone and let her read the messages, which went back 3 years, and that wasn't even the start of it. She was shocked and disgusted by the way they talked to each other, saying her husband had never been that crude with her. Then I played the voice-activated recorder clip where my wife admitted to a 7-year-long affair. That hit her hard, and she took a deep breath. I let her know I had explicit videos from 2 sexual encounters on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. She said she didn't want to see them, but asked me to describe what happened in broad terms. I told her it was mostly what you'd expect, except for one part where my wife pulled out a box of sex toys and used one on him. She looked like she was going to be sick. I didn't want to be crude, but I felt that little detail would be a cheap shot she could use against him if he started acting nasty. I don't think that act happened at home, but I didn't press for details. Finally, I played the recording of her husband arriving at our house just minutes after telling her he was done with her. I apologized and told her I couldn't leave any of this evidence with her. I told her I'd keep her updated if anything else surfaced on the voice-activated recorder that she should know about. My next stop was a visit to the in-laws. I wasn't ready to contact my wife yet, but to prevent a missing persons report or the guards showing up at my office, I knew this had to happen. If her car was still there, I planned to keep driving. When I saw it wasn't, I kept things simple. They offered me coffee, and we sat down to talk. I asked if they had been in contact with my wife. Her father said they had. I asked if they knew I was planning to separate from her, and both nodded. I then asked if she told them why, and they said no. I informed them I'd caught her with another man while I was away for work last week. I showed them the PI photos and the records of this man visiting Monday evening and staying the night Tuesday. Her father apologized and said he hadn't raised her to be that way. Her mom asked how long it had been going on, and I told them she admitted to a 7-year-long affair. I told them we were getting a divorce, that there was no coming back from this, and by refusing to move out, My wife was only costing us both money since I had to stay in a hotel and was entitled to use joint funds for that. I made it clear there was no scenario where I'd live under the same roof as her, and it was in her best interest to find somewhere else to stay until we could sell the house. They agreed and said they'd talk to her. When I got home, I found an email from my soon-to-be ex-wife saying she was willing to sign the separation agreement and move back to her parents' place, but she wanted us to meet and talk. I haven't responded yet. That Monday evening, around midnight, I called home and told my parents what was going on. It was emotional. I hadn't been back since before COVID, and they were quite upset. I didn't tell them I was considering returning home, just in case those plans change. Now, here we are, May 15th. It's been another eventful week, to say the least. Before I continue, I want to acknowledge something I see a lot in the comments, people saying how well I'm handling this situation. Honestly, a lot of that is thanks to this community, not just the encouraging words, but how you all keep me grounded and bring me back to reality. My decisions and actions during this difficult time may impress people, but I haven't shared much about what I'm really feeling. I constantly struggle with an overwhelming desire for things to go back to how they were, which makes my soon-to-be ex-wife's begging incredibly tempting. I entertain the thought of taking her back all the time. Then I remind myself of the wise advice I'd get here if I wrote an update saying I was going to reconcile. That, plus the image of her using a toy while being intimate with him, keeps me grounded. The idea of reconciliation is just a fantasy. There's no coming back from 7 years of repeated betrayal. You helped me more than you probably realize by bringing me back to reality. Thank you. Anyway, I'm writing this from my house. My last update ended with my wife's email, and I finally broke my silence in response to her insistence on meeting before signing the separation agreement. I replied with just 2 words, "Not happening." 24 hours later, she sent me another email, this one 15,000 words long with an attachment. The attachment was the signed separation agreement, no changes. She agreed to everything. Now I just have to wade through all the nonsense to find the details about when I can move back home, right? That might have been true a few years ago, but in 2025 it goes like this. Me. Please read the attached email, but ignore everything except the parts about when I can move back in and when my wife will be moving out. My wife will be moving out Thursday, and the house will be empty by 5 p.m. that same day. I sent her a screenshot of this and a TLDR. I do love Ireland, but the pull of a fresh start is too strong. I've decided to return to Australia. Even though the separation agreement is in place, there's no immediate rush, but I managed to book flights for July. The company I work for has offered me a transfer to Sydney. I'll finish my current role and then begin a new one there. I'm not from Sydney, but it's a short flight back to visit family whenever I want. They're thrilled about the move. Meanwhile, I'll be selling this house, which shouldn't be too hard given Ireland's housing crisis. Australia is also in the midst of a housing crunch, but it's not as severe, and I have family there to support me while I get back on my feet. The affair partner has been lingering like an unwelcome shadow, which I think helped push my soon-to-be ex-wife's decision to move out. I've been catching up on the voice-activated recorder recordings. He showed up last Sunday, March 9th, while I was visiting his wife. This time, she let him in. He's really struggling. He's living with his parents in Kilkenny, which is about a 130 kilometers commute to Dublin. He desperately wants to reconnect with my soon-to-be ex-wife, but she made it very clear she's not interested. She told him he needs to forget about her, that she loves her husband and intends to do everything to win me back. He literally begged and started crying. She told him their relationship was a huge mistake, not worth it, and that it never should have happened. She said their monthly fling was just a bit of fun, but given the consequences, it wasn't worth it. She offered him water, which he refused. Then she told him it was time to leave and that she didn't want to see him again. He left. I contacted his wife to update her on what's been going on, to let her know her husband is still pestering my wife. We had lunch today, talked for over 2 hours, and shared a bottle of wine. He hasn't been back to their house since she kicked him out. She's already seen a solicitor and has started her own separation process. She's still waiting on a draft separation agreement. This time, I was more straightforward about where I stand. There's no coming back after everything I've seen and know. She can't take the same hard line I'm taking, though, because there's a child involved. It's been really tough on her son, and the jerk hasn't even tried to see him. Having kids involved just makes everything so much harder. As much as I'm enjoying watching the affair partner unravel, I do hope he gets his act together for his son's sake. My soon-to-be ex-wife still hasn't told our mutual friends what happened. One of them reached out yesterday, saying how devastated she is, and asked if there's any chance of reconciliation. I told her about the affair and asked her to spread the word to our other friends so I wouldn't get any more calls like that. Supporting my wife, I was clear that this can only end in divorce. She understood and said she'd let everyone know. I added that I have an overwhelming amount of evidence if anyone wants to see it, but I doubt my wife would deny it. The voice-activated recorder didn't pick up much else, just a few sobbing sessions while my soon-to-be ex-wife was alone in the house, and bits of some phone conversations. That's it. Another week in paradise. My plan now is to soak up some local culture over the next few months before I head back home. I'll start with the Dublin St. Patrick's Day parade on Monday, maybe enjoy a Guinness or two. I installed a Wi-Fi CCTV camera at the front of the house to monitor who's coming and going while I'm at work. A couple of interesting things happened last week. First, my wife showed up at my door while I was at work. I assumed she was here to pick up some things she left behind, but she couldn't get in. I had a good laugh watching her try, though it was from a recording not live. She must have known I wasn't home at that time. The other visitor was the affair partner, back again. This time, I caught the alert live and turned the intercom volume all the way up, blasting it for all to hear. She's not here, mate. If you're looking for your sex toys, they're not here either. But I can offer you a carrot. I've never seen someone move so fast to get away from my door. It's not even a hidden camera, just a security camera. If they had shown up at night, the security light would have flashed on along with a red light indicating it was recording. I guess they either didn't expect it or didn't notice. I informed the affair partner's wife that he had been here again, and she updated me on their situation. Apparently, he told her he wanted to come home and that the affair was a big mistake, not something he was serious about. She knew that was nonsense since he was back here begging my wife to take him back on his last visit. That convinced her that divorcing him was the right decision. She told him that, and he got angry, saying he planned to fight for custody of their son. He doesn't stand a chance. Since she kicked him out, he hasn't shown any interest in their child. While this might be a no-fault situation, his behavior related to the affair could still hurt him in custody proceedings if it proves he was dishonest or reckless. Women generally have the upper hand in these cases, but this guy has done nothing to show he's a responsible parent. As for my wife, she's been respecting the separation agreement, so I decided to give her a break and arrange for her to collect her belongings. I told her she could come by on Saturday. When Saturday arrived, she asked if we could talk. I told her there was nothing she could say that I wanted to hear. She reminded me that I had said I needed full disclosure about the affair and that she hadn't had a chance to provide it. Apparently, the long email she sent was her attempt at that, containing a detailed play-by-play of the affair, including emails and texts. That's why it was so lengthy. I told her I wasn't interested in a story I couldn't verify. Honestly, a part of me wants to be convinced to take her back, but I'm on a strong path now, and reading a carefully crafted 15,000-word email meant to make me cave would only make me doubt myself. Then she suggested we finish the infidelity baseball interrogation we started weeks ago. She said I told her I'd leave if I caught her lying 3 times, but I'd only caught her twice. She claimed I don't have the full account of the affair, and if I want it, I'll have to talk to her, one way or another. She said this might be a way to ensure she's telling the truth. I wanted time to prepare, so I told her to come back in a week, which will be this coming Saturday. For now, I'm gathering more evidence, going through bank statements and financial records going back as far as I can. To me, this is just a continuation of the last attempt, and she already has 2 strikes against her. March 29th, 2025, 12 p.m. She arrived looking presentable, but not trying to appear overly sexy or anything like that. I suppose after everything that's happened, her goal was to look respectful. I kept my tone respectfully distant, the kind of tone you'd use with a colleague you don't know well, but have to work with. That was the tone I maintained throughout the entire meeting. I greeted her at the door, invited her in, and offered her coffee. She waited quietly in the sitting room like a guest while I made the coffee. I could tell she was nervous. I was a little nervous too, but quietly confident I knew I was well prepared. I began by restating the terms and purpose of the conversation. I didn't call it infidelity baseball, but I explained that after 7 years of lies and betrayal, I couldn't trust anything she volunteered, and this process was designed to make lying difficult. I told her I didn't want any unsolicited accounts of what happened, and that I wouldn't be answering any of her questions. She said that was fair under the circumstances and thanked me for giving her the chance, even if it was somewhat limited. She said she wanted to offer an explanation but understood why I didn't want one and hoped the process would provide the details I was seeking. I went on to explain that I have more information about the affair than she probably realizes. It comes from multiple sources. I know she's likely aware that I had a private investigator following them, and that I've met several times with the affair partner's wife to compare notes. But there are other sources too, from my own investigations. From all that, I have a scattered but broad picture of the affair, and now I want to fill in the gaps. I pointed out that 7 years of betrayal and lies have been very hard to accept, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to trust her again. If trust is ever to be rebuilt, it has to be on a foundation of full disclosure. Just like last time, I have a series of questions, some of which I already know the answers to. I warned her that if I caught her in a lie even once, I would end the conversation immediately, and she would never have another chance to speak to me directly. She said she understood. The first questions I asked were about recent contact with the affair partner. Have you met with him since I walked away from our relationship on the evening of March 5th? She replied, it's not that I met him, he came to me, but yes, I've seen him twice. Did anything sexual happen during those visits? Sex, a kiss, a hug, touching of any kind? No, we only talked briefly. What dates did he come to you, and where were you? I was here in this house both times. He came uninvited on both occasions. The first time was the night you left not long after I refused to open the door and told him to leave. Did you let him in the second time? Yes. That was the Sunday after you left. Was he trying to continue your relationship? Yes. I made it very clear to him that it wasn't going to happen. I only let him in to tell him that, but he was very upset, so I had to be careful with my words. Did he try to contact you again after that? I don't know. I blocked him everywhere and haven't seen him since. Did he show up at your parents' house? Not that I'm aware of. I don't know how he would have gotten that address. He only knows roughly where the house is, the suburb, but not the exact address. That's something I never shared. Are you grieving the relationship? I've thought about this a lot. I think if I had ended the affair before you found out, maybe I would have felt something. But right now, there's no space in my heart to grieve this affair when my actual relationship is in ruins. It's like trying to feel the pain of stubbing your toe after having your arm chopped off with a guillotine. Do you love him? No, I don't think I ever did. The second group of questions was about her behavior when she was with him. Were you different around him, personality-wise? I'm not sure what you mean by different. Think of it like the persona you take on around your grandma compared to your school friends. You act differently, right? Different persona, different ways of speaking, and so on. Did you adopt a different persona when you were with him? Yes, I suppose I did. Do you remember early in our relationship when I tried to talk dirty with you? I used some vulgar language and terms like that. Do you remember how you responded? I said that kind of language was a turn-off, disrespectful, and that I just wanted you to make love to me. Yes. Did you apply that same logic with the affair partner? No. We both regularly used vulgar terms. Why the double standard? There was a long pause as she thought before answering. I think it's because I don't love him, and I didn't want to worry about him losing respect for me. Your respect is important to me. We were equal partners in our relationship. I also feel like there's an undertone in your question suggesting what we have is somehow less than this dirty affair sex, and that's not true. You're the only man alive who can make love to me. When we're together, we share an experience full of emotion. When I was with the affair partner, it didn't feel shared, it felt like we were just using each other's bodies for a cheap thrill. The dirty talk and sex helped me emotionally detach and treat him like a sex toy. Sex was always impersonal, I made sure of it. Is that why you risked our marriage for a cheap thrill? That's not how I saw it. I thought we were being careful. I never thought you'd find out. It's more that I underestimated the risk. In fact, I still don't know how you found out. I called you that Tuesday night while he was there. What was going on at that moment? Describe the scene for me. When you called, I was in the bedroom, and he was at the far end in the shower. Where was the box of sex toys? I can't remember. Were they on the bed next to you? Ah, yes. By then, they would have been on the bed. How did you know that? I'm the one asking the questions, remember? So here's the picture. I called you while your affair partner was in my shower, and you were sitting on the bed next to a box of sex toys you were planning to use on him. You not only brushed me off by saying you were having an early night, but also blamed me for why you felt tired. Do you remember that? Yes. I told you I didn't sleep well because you weren't here with me the night before. That sounds awful when I say it back to you. I'm really sorry. She started crying, and we took a 5-minute break. The third set of questions is about what you did together. Whose idea was it to introduce sex toys into your routine? It was mostly my idea. He asked me to do a below-the-belt massage, and I told him there was no way I was putting a finger there. The toys were a compromise. Did he need them to get an excitement? Not exactly, but they helped him get harder and bigger. He's not well endowed, so I wanted to make sure he was fully excited before sex. How long have you been using the sex toys? At least 5 years. Did you use them on yourself? You've always said you didn't like sex toys. I only used them as a backup if he couldn't bring me to climax. How often did that happen? About half the time. He could have finished me off, but I didn't like the mess the toys made when used on him. When he finished, I always made him shower immediately, so he never had the chance to finish me off after we used the toys. Is there anything else you did for him that you never did or allowed me to do? We tried backdoor once, but I didn't like it, that's why I never tried it with you. Why did you let him finish inside you? Weren't you worried about infection or pregnancy? Pregnancy was very unlikely because he had a vasectomy and I was on the pill, virtually impossible. I'm sorry if you feel I put you at risk for an STI. It was selfish, but I trusted him when he said he was only sleeping with me and his wife. During our conversation on March 5th, I asked if you'd had any abortions, and you said no. But you didn't mention the vasectomy. Why not? At that moment, I was trying to protect his privacy. It felt like a personal thing to reveal. I realized soon after that was a mistake, and I would have told you. I did mention it in an email, but then you left, so I haven't had a chance to say it face to face until now. Also, you weren't really giving me the chance to give detailed answers in either of our last two conversations. Did he ever say anything disrespectful about me? Did he get off on the fact that he was with another man's wife? He did, once, early on in the relationship. I was really angry with him. I even threw him out. I felt so incredibly guilty about what we were doing that I couldn't even look at him. Over the next couple of weeks, he came crawling back. When we met up the following month, we agreed that our partners were off limits in conversation. I was never to mention his wife, and he was never to mention you. We stuck to that rule for 7 years. That might be part of why the arrangement lasted so long. When he was here, it felt normal, like he was supposed to be here. We were essentially role-playing that our partners didn't exist. So during the short times we had together, the focus was entirely on each other. Outside of your monthly in-person meetings, did you have virtual interactions? Yes. Did you have phone sex? Yes. Did you do sexual video calls? Yes. Texting? Yes. How often did you have video calls and phone sex? About once a week. Often while I was at work, I'd message him if I was horny, then go to the bathroom and watch each other sound off, of course. Did you see him at all during the COVID lockdowns when I wasn't traveling? No. We decided to take a break and focus on our partners during that time. Did you still text each other? Yes. Was there any phone sex? Maybe some, but opportunities were rare, so it was infrequent. Did you ever meet in hotels or anywhere outside our house? No. His house was always off limits because his wife was there. Spending money on hotels could have left a trail of evidence, so we thought it was safer to use our house. Did you ever meet at restaurants? No. We didn't even order takeaway because it could have left evidence of the affair. I always cooked for us. Did you celebrate anniversaries? No. Did the passage of time ever come up? Just thinking about it made me feel guilty about the affair. We never discussed how long it had been going on, and we certainly didn't celebrate it. Who bought the sex toys? How were they delivered without detection? He bought them. He has a P.O. box in Belfast that he used for things that couldn't be delivered to the Republic. The toys were sent there. Side note, until a couple of weeks ago, there was no Irish Amazon store. We usually bought from the UK store, but many vendors there refused to ship to the Republic. Some products, like anything with lithium-ion batteries, are especially difficult to ship here. So many people use services in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, to receive goods on their behalf. In this segment, I asked about other affairs. Did you have affairs with anyone else while we've been together? No, he was the only one. Did anyone else ever join you in the bedroom? No. He suggested a three-way with another man in the first year, but I said no. What about another woman? He never asked, but I think you know what my answer would have been. I don't presume to know anything about you. I thought I knew you, but then learned there was a lot I didn't. So please answer honestly. Well, I kind of did. He never asked, but I would have said no if he did. Is he bi? No. The other man was bi. He wanted to watch. He wanted to watch me have sex with a man larger than him and join in. Okay, so you didn't love him, and he only satisfied you about half the time. What were you even getting out of it? Why keep going for so long? At first, I was getting more out of it, but over time it just became a comfortable arrangement. It seemed riskier to end it than to keep it going. I know that sounds strange, but let me explain. There were several times when I felt guilty and thought about ending it, but he seemed more invested in the affair than I was. There were subtle threats about exposing my marriage and his. He talked about leaving his wife so we could be together, but I told him that would never happen. If he had left his wife, the affair would have come to light. She would have had questions about whether he was seeing someone else. I told him our relationship could only continue as it was. It would be over if he left his wife or if he found out. In many ways, it felt like a nuclear arms race, where the threat of total destruction prevented either side from acting. He wanted to keep sleeping with me, and I wanted to keep my marriage. It really felt like that could only happen if the affair stayed secret and ongoing. What did I get out of it? A little bit of fun on lonely nights while you were away, and a way to keep my marriage intact. There was still some excitement in the forbidden fantasies we acted out, but honestly, I've been quite indifferent about it for years. I've known for some time I wouldn't be upset if the affair ended. He, on the other hand, would have run away with me if given the chance. Hygiene and practical matters. You didn't change the sheets after having sex with him using a toy in our bed. Presumably, that was because you thought I'd be suspicious if you changed the sheets every time I was away? Yes, I laid down towels so the sheets wouldn't get soiled. I know you did. There were 7 towels in the wash bag, and you didn't even try to hide them. So much for being careful. Okay, I'm sorry. Usually, I did change the sheets I washed, dried, and put them back on before you got home. But the last time he was here, it was the night before you came back, and I had to work early in the morning, so there was no time to do all that before you arrived. Departing, those were all the questions I asked. At that point, I thanked her for being honest and forthcoming. She said she knows she's done something terrible and that she's so sorry she'd do anything to fix our relationship. She tried to hold me, but I stepped back and told her I didn't want her to touch me. I said that after what she'd done, her touch made my skin crawl and that I wasn't interested. Then she outright told me that if I took her upstairs, she'd let me do anything I wanted with her. I told her it was time for her to leave and that my solicitor was arranging the sale of the house and would be in contact with her. She started crying hysterically and asked what happens next. I said I'd need a lot of time to process everything, but in the meantime, all contact should go through my solicitor. At that moment, she was standing on the front porch, so I closed the door and locked it behind her. For the rest of the day, I opened a bottle of Jameson I'd been saving and set about blocking our so-called mutual friends everywhere. I even reblocked my wife's phone number. Today is Monday, and I feel like I finally have a much clearer understanding of what happened and why it went on for so long. There's nothing remotely forgivable about it, but at least I can understand it now and move forward without constantly wondering what went wrong. I have 3 months to close this chapter of my life, starting with selling the house and my few remaining possessions. After that, I'm flying out to Australia. Saturday morning, April 12th. The real estate agent is hosting viewings at the house in a few hours. Preparing for that has taken up most of my free time recently. That's where my focus is. The sooner I get to Australia, the better. But just when I thought I was close to the finish line, another drama-filled week hit. I was talking to the affair partner's wife again. She had been doing better, and he's been regularly visiting his son, so that was some relief. However, we uncovered something that made me sick all over again. The affair partner had never told his wife about his vasectomy. When my wife told me about it, I assumed it was something they agreed on together, but it turns out it was a secret between him and my wife. In fact, the affair partner and his wife were trying for more children, or at least, she thought they were. This selfish betrayal is the reason they only have one child. Out of everything that's happened, this is the most selfish and cruel thing I've come across. It adds an insane new layer to the whole mess. The affair partner wanted to leave his wife, but my wife convinced him to string her along out of fear that the affair would come to light during a divorce. So, they stole 7 years of this woman's reproductive life. How can anyone do that to another person? From my own research, I know that a vasectomy is a day procedure, and many people go back to work right after. It's keyhole surgery that leaves no visible scars and costs about £500, so it's not even a huge expense to hide it. Yes, it's possible to conceal it from your partner just by avoiding sex for a week or two during recovery. I thought I couldn't feel any more disgust toward my wife, but this barrel seems bottomless. After learning all this, I had to face what I can only describe as an intervention from our mutual friends after they found out I had ghosted them. 4 of them showed up at my house on Thursday night after work, supposedly just to check if I was okay. They left their partners at home, so 4 men came over. I told them I was fine and asked why they were all there. One of them did most of the talking. His name was Patrick. Pat said he was worried I was isolating myself and that it wasn't healthy. He said he noticed I'd blocked him, and after talking to the others, they all realized they'd been ghosted too. I told him the same thing I told my wife, that I needed space and time to think. I had blocked my wife, her family, and friends so I could have that space. On top of that, I've been busy getting the house ready for sale, cleaning it thoroughly and repainting the most neglected rooms. Pat said, "We're not just your wife's friends, we're your friends too, and we want to be here for you." I replied, "You might consider yourselves friends, but this affair was despicable, and you've taken a neutral stance on it. You're still in contact with her, and I want to cut off all contact with her. That means cutting out the middleman too. This whole separation has been devastating. She has the support of people who will take her side, no matter what her family. I don't have that here. My family lives on the other side of the world. What I need is not a group who will likely relay everything I say back to her." Pat said something like, "You can't expect us to cut her off. We've known her for years, and while the affair is disturbing, it's between the two of you." I answered, "The only thing I expect is to be left alone. I'm not asking anyone to cut her off, but I'm not interested in hanging out with people who can excuse the disgusting behavior my wife has shown over the past 7 years. They say you don't get to choose your family, but you can choose your friends, and you're choosing to be friends with a despicable excuse for a human being. I want nothing to do with you. If I seek support to get through this, it will be from people willing to take my side. For reasons I'll never understand." Pat thought this was a good time to advocate for my wife. He asked how much time I thought I'd need before speaking to her again, whether I could ever forgive her, and if divorce was inevitable. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked him straight in the eyes and asked if he knew about the affair before I did. His face turned bright red, shock spreading across his features, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He couldn't hide it. I lost my cool then and said, "Let me tell you about the damn affair you were complicit in enabling. And let's start by correcting your math. This isn't just between me and my wife. This involves me, my wife, her affair partner, his wife, his 8-year-old son, and now you too." I asked him how long he had known, and he said only 2 to 3 years. His wife had seen him entering our house while I was away and confronted my wife about it. That's when she came clean and begged her not to say anything. I then filled them all in about the vasectomy and the impact it was having on the affair partner's wife, what she's now going through. That's what your friend does to people. I'm not interested in having friends who are okay with that, let alone those who enable it. They all fell silent. I asked if anyone else knew. Pat said it was only him and his wife. The others said they didn't know. Pat said he didn't know about the vasectomy and admitted hearing about it made him feel sick too. This is the company you're keeping. If you're okay with having a friend like that, I'm not okay with having you as a friend. Pat tried to apologize, but I told him I couldn't accept it. I threw them all out and told them to learn how to take an effing hint and not to come back. That made cutting them all off a whole lot easier. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.